What is up, everybody? Welcome to Challengers Promotion/Relegation. We got a super exciting 2 best-of-3 series waiting for you guys to watch, and not to mention, of course, your casters, me, Gompers, you already know who I am, and Marks. What's up, Marks?
Hey, how's it going? Just happy to be here, you know, Gomp.
Of course. We all are. I mean, come on. We got a pretty exciting series ahead of us, and I mean, not to mention a super banger of a game, but all the while, I mean, welcome back to Promotion/Relegation. We got to see some fun stuff beforehand. I know the team that has previously qualified was Blinn Esports, a team that was very well deserved that win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've taken a look at Blinn Esports, just in the collegiate circuit, as well as even honestly when they made the round at qualifiers first split, they looked incredibly good, and they just fell a little bit short just at the end of that qualification. And so honestly, to see these guys kind of get back into it and secure their spot as well, it is an amazing thing to see, and I'm super excited to see how they participate in Split 2.
Of course, and I mean, Split 2 might be able to say, we'll see who qualifies for that. That's of course, true. The mid-season cup is the way to go right now, and we only have 1 spot left available, but hey, we're getting to that. What is Promotion/Relegation? Of course, it is the promotion or relegation of whether or not you get to make it up to that mid-season cup and compete to make it into that Split 2. So definitely really cutthroat position to be in. But of course, we have that double elimination coming through within the series and the games throughout the 2 days that you guys have been here so far. Of course, this being the last day, but that in itself is going to be quite interesting.
Yep, and so kind of like what you were saying, Gompers, 2 teams from actual Challenger Split 1 are in this bracket, being the Thinking Men as well as the Glazers. And the top 2 from the Premier thing that kind of happens, which is honestly a kind of cool way to build yourself into the Challengers League. That is right now Blinn Esports, who have already qualified. And then we have Resonate coming into this one as well. And so as you can kind of look at this schedule, like we said, Blinn already there. It's great. But Resonate just fell short during that series, losing 2-0. And so now they have potential to make it into that midseason cup. They just have to beat the winner of this first match, which is going to be the Thinking Men up against the Glazers.
Thinking Men versus the Glazers. And this is a team, despite being in, that main series throughout Challenger Series 1, this is a team that actually had never crossed paths before. So This is completely new. It's 2 of the teams that got knocked out, 2 of the teams that are fighting for that sort of resolve, and one of the teams that won't be able to make it back to that first-hand Challengers spot, which is super unfortunate. But of course, I think it's hard for Thinking Men too, because they did get knocked down by Resolve. So if they manage to make it back up again, it's like having to do a rematch against the team that you lost against previously and got knocked down into that lower bracket spot. But of course, that's for future reference. We're going to be able to get to that soon. Although I want to hear your thoughts, Marks. We'll do pick'ems before anything else, because I'm genuinely curious. Who do you think is going to win today versus those 2?
I love me some spicy pick'ems, but I honestly don't think that this is a spicy pick at all. I do think that in this first matchup, we are going to be seeing the Thinking Men go up against the Glazers. I think the Thinking Men are probably going to squeeze it out against the Glazers. And then, like you said, they go up into this position where they have to fight Resonate, which Resonate was the team that knocked them down into the lower bracket here. Personally, I would like to see Resonate actually get that spot, because they've been playing with very bizarre comps. If you were watching yesterday, you kind of got to see how they were operating there. But I think it'd be really cool if Resonate made it. But that's not to take away from any of these other teams. And of course, this is Valorant, so like anything could happen.
This is Valorant. We love Valorant. Valorant is a fun game. Of course, not when you're competing for money. I feel like then it starts to get stressful, but all the while, I digress. 2 teams kind of ready to battle out for a huge potential to proceed forward and not get knocked out of the way. So that's definitely something. Of course, map picks and bans are kind of what I'm curious about, especially regarding with these 2 teams. There are some things that should be banned, some things that should not, and I'm not seeing it. I think my biggest concern here is the sunset. I mean, for Thinking Men, this is such a strong map, and a map that I truly do think that the Glazers lack a lot in.
I mean, okay, so we got the map picks and bans ahead of time, right? And Sunset, 93 win percent for the Thinking Men, so you know that they're coming into this one. And then that, like you just said, why would the Glazers pick Sunset? Well, the first ban that they went through is actually Split, which is arguably their weakest map. And so I think that it was a little bit more of just, okay, we have a bit of a better win percentage on Sunset than we do on Split. And the Thinking Men are pretty good on Split too. So let's just try and take away our crutch and then go on to Sunset. Let Sunset through on that first round. But more interesting is the Breeze pick, because Breeze is actually the Thinking Men's lowest win percentage. So that is their weakest map, while the Glazers look pretty decent. So it feels like they're coming back with a bit of a swing on map number 2 to potentially force out Bind as our map number 3.
I think if anything, either way, yeah, Bind is a pretty equal percentage in terms of I guess more so what the teams can pull through with that third map. So regardless, the Breeze pick a great counter to picking Sunset, because this, I'm not even gonna lie, I genuinely think Sunset might be in the bag for Thinking Men. This being their best map, a map they basically beat everyone in. Like it just really does not feel good to kind of see that lockdown for that first map. So the disadvantage already there for the Glazers. Moving forward to that Breeze. Listen, I like the beach. That's pretty much all I can say. We're going to see how that works out in the end. For Thinking Men, I think the Glazers definitely having a strategy in their pockets here, especially with compositions that they run. I know occasionally we get to see some Astra and Viper, which in itself is pretty weird on a map like Breeze, but they do make it work. So this team is very experimental. My apologies for Thinking Men. They like to pull that out on a map like Breeze. Maybe that's potentially why they don't do so well, but we'll see. No, I'm just kidding. That's the Glazers that goes that has 0% win rate on that Breeze map too. So, I mean, they could be cooking something up, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, once again, this is still Valorant. You can do anything, can kind of happen there, but this really does feel like the Glazers being like, well, we know that this is kind of their Achilles heel, so why don't we just take a swing at that just to see if we can squeak out something a little bit more? Because I think a lot of the points that you said are incredibly valid. The Thinking Men going for a little bit more experimental Breeze, because maybe the traditional meta on Breeze isn't necessarily how they like playing. Well, that's something that maybe the Glazers can kind of squeak out and force out map number 3. But Sunset, I share a lot of your concerns here. I mean, the Thinking Men, their composition on how they like to play this is incredibly solidified. The Glazers, more or less, they tried a couple of different ideas, but eventually just kind of fit into that same cookie cutter mold on Sunset. So it kind of makes me think that it's one of those things where, they were like, well, the Thinking Men are doing a really good job with that, so why don't we just do that too? Which doesn't inspire confidence, because that means that the ball is going to firmly be in the Thinking Men's court. And so, like you, I do expect the Thinking Men to be able to take map number 1.
Well, of course, experimental or not, we're going to have to see what's going on with Sunset and what the agent select is going to look like. I know for a fact that we have been trying to see what works for Sunset, especially for the Glazers. They've had different compositions with the Breach, Cypher, Omen, Raze, and Sova actually coming back and making its way back to a map like Sunset. So it seems like they're not really changing too much, but obviously here we have a Sage and a Gecko kind of just forming for Thinking Men, which, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on that, Marks.
I mean, all I can say about that is that they've been watching a lot of VCT lately, because with how a lot of these Sunset compositions run right now, Gecko is a mainstay. And sure, we've seen them play with Gecko before, but generally speaking, they've always kind of brought in the Fade for that double initiator combination. But I actually think that bringing in this Gecko, if done appropriately, can be a really strong pick here, because obviously, the fact that you can throw out the Dizzy and then immediately pick it up, get a little bit of information, as well as just the whole idea of allowing Wingman to be able to plant things, there's just so much more versatility that that Gecko kit is going to bring to the table. Now, on the other hand, Sova coming in as that second initiator, this one is a little bit more unconventional on Sunset specifically, but the Shock Darts could be very effective at trying to clean up a lot of utility that might be tossed on there, but I'm saying that. And the Thinking Men don't even have a Cypher. So actually bringing a Sage in, this is going to be a really interesting matchup between these two teams.
Definitely something to get used to, especially starting off on the defense. There's so much value with Vix kind of playing with paint at the moment down in A. But already Ping's coming down to see an aggressive, mid-informative takedown to it. Yeah, already stuns coming through. And now quick shots down coming from Scrubblebub. Huge already on the side of them. I mean, they managed to get that first execution. Of course, Paint having to push themselves back regardless. Now super low on health. And a refrag for that. So 2-2 down.
Yeah, look at this. Already the flank watch underway. So at this point, the Glazers, they have to take this site. But still, Vix is hanging out here. It might be tough.
Yeah, you would think they have the upper hand, but with a rotation like this one, honestly, this might work out way, way better in the hands of the Glazers.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. A lot of the utility for the Thinking Men just simply does not exist anymore because they used it all in that fast util dump. Meanwhile, Drone still has an aftershock and a flashpoint available, as well as one more smoke being able to be put online, and plenty of time for the Glazers to actually set up. As the Thinking Men, they're going to have to retake this, and this one's going to be tough.
Just putting up top though, Zachary is already starting off strong in the pistol round and closing things out for the Glazers very spontaneously. That was huge. I mean, quick rotation, good call outs when it came down to what the strategy really needed at that moment, and they avoided all death.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I was kind of saying, I was fully expecting them to just rush onto that A site and get that plant down. Already we saw Vix having to back off into the back part there, but once they realized where that gecko's going, the Glazers made the right call and just do an excellent job of thinking on their feet, rotating all the way back over to B. It was a very aggressive start for the Thinking Men to dump all their util. They were hoping to catch them inside of a trap, and it did more or less work out. But as soon as we got to see the Glazers start to just run their way over to B, no more utility existed for the Thinking Men to properly just refrag it, and the Glazers had plenty of time to set up their post plants. That aggressive play from the Thinking Men not quite working out the way that they wanted it to.
Yeah, working well in favor. I like the approach. Off the start, again, super great early information. Just the push up down in A was a little bit scattered. I would say if Thinking Men were to take something out of that, it was just timing slightly off, Scrubblebub taking in a 1v2, and then unfortunately my apologies, someone else getting taken out in the process there. But actually, I think it was Paint. But overall, it was valiant effort, and kind of leads you to understanding Thinking Men just a little bit more. A super aggressive take like that starting off this early on in the game kind of leaves the Glazers with a lot to work with in the second round.
And this is something, too, that I have to question a little bit more about picking that Sage over the Cypher, because normally you would have trips kind of set up throughout the map in order to really check whether or not rotations like that could be underway, or give yourself a little bit more information, but sure, you can toss down the barrier orb. It's going to block off a single lane, yet you're still going to be lacking some of that more global information around the map. And so that is going to be what the Glazers have to really capitalize on their attack here. Just making sure that they can take a lot of control of the map. And right off the bat, once again, more aggression coming out from the Thinking Men. This time, though, just really to secure that orb.
Yeah, not pulling through with the early info, though, this time.
Deploying drone.
It's more so playing for the util. Drone already set out. Nobody can hear the information. Regardless, even if it does reach up to Paint, they can't rely on that solely alone to slowly work their way back towards A.
And this is so interesting because the Thinking Men have completely given up A, which should allow the Glazers to comfortably get themselves into a plant. The big question right now is whether or not they're going to try and contest it. Already, paint shells from Paint have been used up, and Reach utility going to be tossed in onto site. Everything execute-wise is going to be great. Let's see how the Thinking Men want to play this, and if they're going to attempt to try and do a retake here.
Seems like already tons of util being expended outward, but they're doing a good job at holding themselves together.
Out of charges.
The Glazers losing Riku just off the rip of that. But regardless, I didn't really have a lot of util to utilize. I think drone is such a major point within the game, especially with a slow retake we're starting to see come through from Thinking Men. 3v1. Now Ange left down towards the back. Free Bulldog in the hands. And especially now, Paint Show gone. They can't play that post-plant positioning, so now they have to continue to fight this down, and that they will. Beautiful shots coming through from the Glazers, and big redemption.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what you said there. It was a lot of that breach utility coming in from the Thinking Men that honestly gave them a solid shot and being able to make their way back in.
Yeah.
Such good timing with the fault line and then the aftershock. It's all kind of chaos on there. And then they just flood in with their bodies and a couple of lucky kills, actually, making the economy of the Glazers on this round not exactly solid. Sure, they've got that Vandal, they've got that Bulldog, but otherwise just some Sheriffs coming through. Well, Thinking Men, this is going to be their real first opportunity. Let's see if we're going to see some of that patented aggression right off the bat. Dizzy goes up, doesn't quite find any targets, but already Paint making contact.
Yeah, despite that, they've just gotten a couple, ran away with it. Completely unsatisfied with that, Lear starts to move themselves up, and this is risky. You're by yourself, absolutely no flashes, knowing that there was more than one here, and they still fight it. Beautiful shot to come through, just taking and ripping the Glazers apart on this bonus round.
One enemy remaining.
Yep, oh, precision. Caught off guard here, and now Drone in this 1v4 is okay, gets the kill onto Lear at least. Has a chance to be able to get that spike down, get the Rolling Thunder online, potentially for next round, but Thinking Men are already getting set up.
Yeah. Performance-wise, I mean, a good round from Thinking Men, good round from TG2, just eliminating some of that economy to kind of go down the line. But yeah, regardless, I would never have thought to push up aggressively like this, and I did like it. It was ballsy, and it kind of gave that approach that they needed to allow Drone to pull together. My apologies, not Drone. The Breach to pull together with some of those picks. So Lear doing a great job at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, like I said, though, Drone will have the Rolling Thunder online. Seen a bit of a switch up, actually, by Thinking Men, specifically where they want to position themselves, because Zachary this time going to be the one taking a lot of aggression. The Barrier Orb slowing things down for a second. But actually, Precision might get timing on Paint, never mind. And now they know that this must be an A-side hit. You don't see that Cypher and think, ah, yes, they're pushing here.
Oh, I thought Vix was going to get noticed, but they aren't. This might be huge. One-way still placed. Absolutely no idea as to where Vix is. And of course, they're still having maybe a Dizzy or a Wingman to use in this moment, but not necessary. Big retake potential for Thinking Men here. Still having 5 of their players and Precision down. So, I mean, at this point, only biggest worry is, yep, waiting for this Rolling Thunder to move through. Riku getting prepared to push that down. And regardless, a 1-for-1 trade, so you still have some sort of potential to really take things back if you're Thinking Men.
Honestly, just a smart move to use the Rolling Thunder off the rip. Now Zachary responding as well. Has that online, but the Thinking Men are just really taking their time. They don't want anything to do with that showstopper.
At least now they know where this team is kind of residing. Majority going through.
Cover going on.
Opposite side here, Scrubble Bub slowly working themselves in, down through smoke, and finds another one. Thinking Men slowly bringing themselves back and preparing themselves for that victory. 2-2 scoreline.
Yeah, the defuse coming underway. Honestly, just good understanding of Thinking Men. And if you take a look at the ultimate, economy, I said ultimate economy, I just meant the overall economy. But I think the Thinking Men are doing really well. Not only are they able to force the rifles out of the Glazers' hands, but they pull out that Rolling Thunder, pull out that showstopper. And the Glazers honestly didn't get as much value out of it as they probably would have wanted. It's an interesting strategy. Thinking Men more or less leaning on their retakes as opposed to actually trying to defend the site. It feels like they really just want to play aggression. We want to push into you and use our utility to do so, as opposed to hold things down. And quite frankly, the Glazers, they're getting a lot of room, but they're using a lot of that utility on the entry, making the post plant a little bit more difficult for them to be able to secure against this Thinking Men retake.
Yeah, they're watching. Reformed with the op, holding the angle. Making sure that anybody that wants to push themselves out is going to be taken away from this. And a beautiful shot, a possible collateral, but it ends up not that way. Wolf starting to push itself out, and another one. It just does not end. 40 health left and still fighting for their lives, but it's Ange that takes that one back. So the op now not in hand. They have to fight for that. That's huge economy wasted, but at the same time, a possibility for a round win.
And yeah, those Barrier Orbs being such an annoyance here. Scrubble Bubble, not able to quite find it, but has the information. Paranoia gonna go out.
Trying to use the op for good more so, but yeah, so lit. Honestly, you can't even do anything about it. Done with it as well. huge util. And I mean, regardless, even though TG still did have, okay, Sheriffs playing against an op, what can you do? They still managed to pick that up. So at the end of the day, definitely putting in some good efforts there.
Yeah, and then on top of that, now we've got Paint being able to have that showstopper online, but Reformed, wow, that was just the performance with the operator there. You called it. I thought there was going to be a collateral there, but just a little bit off, just a couple of pixels wrong. And yeah, at that point, it's just an overwhelming gun advantage that is going to allow Thinking Men to just very comfortably retake it. The Glazers going up against the Storm. They try that 5-man stack onto the B side, but immediately get punished for it. And now they're just a little bit more hesitant to do so. Looks like Thinking Men this time, though. Gonna play a little bit more on taking that mid control, but look at that. Such a little clean microplay around that smoke. Beautiful stuff from the Thinking Men.
And mid is always such an issue I feel I've seen with Sunset, just not being able to take control. And already with a big op shot starting up, they've lost Riku. Lack of information. Only thing they can account for is maybe that stun to come through, but it's Paint that's still there. Paint shell available, doesn't take it. But that's okay, Scrubblebub still stuck up back. Still stuck. Down towards back. Util pushed down, and that's huge.
Down B.
Already left down to the spike. And they have full control over the situation. How do they just continue to run away with the op shots? It's like TG just can't do anything. Despite the 1v1, Lear cleaning up all the mess that has been done and still keeping the op in hand as well.
Man, I just got a comment on the fact that Precision really living up to the name there. Oh man, stunned up with the fault line, still flicks over, gets a clean headshot. But still Lear is able to clean that one up. And honestly, when you just take a look at the util game that's kind of coming out between these two teams, it feels a lot more solid from Thinking Men. We're seeing a little bit of util toss here or there, the basic smokes and the flashes onto sight. But overall, the Glazers, it feels like they're stuck in their ways of how they want to use the utility, where the Thinking Men are a little bit more dynamic with it. I mean, obviously, the smoke last round was an excellent version of it, but I have to admit, I love the way that Thinking Men are playing around what they've got.
It's such a quirky way to use the stage, too. You'd think you'd want to put it in the hands of the duelists, but they're using Paint to the best of their ability alongside Lear, now especially being able to push back, gather some information, still keeping Reformed in place.
Nice and slow right now. A lot of ultimates actually online for Thinking Men as well, so if things start to get a little bit dire, they have a bit more room to work with.
Oh, and a beautiful return around. Come on, the wall just set up to keep themselves at bay, and it's so good. The way they play with this Sage is just immaculate, and you would think that you can see why it works in terms of what's been run and what the meta's starting to look like, but now especially slowed down coming through. Scrubblebub looking to make things happen. Though unfortunately Reformed a bit too late to that. Yeah, Paint shell just to clean things up. Again, TG just struggling to keep themselves in the running here, especially as that 5-2 comes into fruition.
I figured it out. I know why they pick Sage. Because it's incredibly annoying. That's all I've got right now. Because, you know, you made an excellent point there, right? With the weird walls coming up, and then Reformed is like there with an operator. But even just then, what you saw, using the Sage wall to deny the space and allow for a little bit more of an escape, because, well, Sage doesn't have any movement utility. The Sage is just being so annoying, and it's been so difficult for the Glazers to try and predict where that op is reliably. Unfortunately, you don't really have that much util to kind of make that one work, but aggressive right off the bat.
Okay, big. Already leaving out Zachary out of the picture, so you lose your duelist for the attacking half. How are you going to approach this side, especially now with Drone? Yeah, already getting so much health taken off. 3v3 situation, and even then Reform still has the op. I'd be scared. Where can you go? What can you do? No information at all.
Yeah, this is where things start to fall apart, is that unprecedented aggression just kind of getting punished, and suddenly the Thinking Men find themselves into a little bit more of a weird spot. Reform does have this resurrection online, but actually won't be able to use it. I thought for sure he's going to be able to get that operator pick, and now I think the Glazers know B side should be open. Riku is able to get one more ultimate orb that will allow for Hunter's Fury to be online as well. Could be an excellent tool to at least stall things out, while the Thinking Men 2v3. This is where they should shine on this retake.
Yeah, taking their time, though.
Fighted.
At least now they're going to have to run, knowing majority are there, but so much Cypher util stuck around the back. You have the cam to watch out for information. You have the trip to play for that. Yep, and now already given away 2 players stuck on there. And just breach util, the only thing that you can use, luckily enough. Having themselves an ultimate to push through it, but it doesn't matter. Wingman's still trying to find something, but the time is ticking in a 1v3 situation. Not the best place to be in. Yeah, back and forth, ring around the rosy. Round win coming through from Drone.
And that time around, I mean, obviously we can say that was, ooh, thinking men. They put too much gas in the tank. They overburned themselves, a little bit too much nitrous, almost flew off the edge of the cliff there. But at the same time, I think that this is just a bit more of an understanding coming through the Glazers in how they like to play a little bit more aggressive off the rip or try to go for really deep flanks right off the bat because, you know, while Paint was using that showstopper, Scrubble Bubble also used the From the Shadows to go right into their spawn to try and get that backstab. And the Glazers were kind of ready for it, and they punished it, much like the flank on the post plant. So a bit more understanding coming through here, but the Thinking Men, they've still got a nice and comfortable patch of money to sit themselves on top of. This round, though, Zachary also has an op.
Nah, Reformed has been so quick with it, but it seems like Zachary just proved me wrong. Reaction time, not there. And now the site ain't there either. Already gathering so much with it. Paint Shell to push Zachary just a little bit further into it, and it's Riku to shut things down. It's a beautiful, beautiful teamwork. That just comes through. TG still waiting to peek the angle, and I think Vix knows. Dissipation of the smoke gone, and Vix holds the angle. It doesn't even work. Regardless, mid-sight. Control still being taken away.
Oh, precision. Just walking across. Lear's gonna get it. What? It was that! That is unbelievable stuff. And now, this round is just shut down. Vix will just have to save their rifle here. Unbelievable flick coming through from Precision on that one.
Yeah, thinking, man, that took a slightly surprising turn. It seems like they've relied so much on the op to do a lot of the work. Where, as to now, of course, Reformed takes the 1v1, loses out on it. They have no backup plan for it, so they just continue to get taken down. Especially in a moment like this one. This was game-changing for TG.
And I think that if we look at how some of those rounds went, that still is just such a nasty flick there. But Thinking Men coming in here with a little bit more creativity, a little bit more novel strategies, specifically around Reformed. This tends to happen in Valorant. Obviously, your team starts to get a bit of a better read on what you guys like to do, and so they can adapt for it. And I think that we're just seeing the Glazers start to get a bit more comfortable with it. This is interesting, though, Gompers. This time around, Drone is going to be the one with the operator in hand. Zachary just using the Vandal, while Reformed going to be back on a Vandal as well. A lot more static from defense. Thinking Men just playing that contact, trying to play off of what information they can gather, because once again, they don't have that much utility to really get them that info without just listening or seeing things themselves.
Okay. A bit more quiet, though. Kind of settling themselves for just an informative play here. A huge shot coming through from Precision alone, too. And now especially identifying where the op is from Thinking Men. Huge counters, tons of ultimates just set down back to back. The Rolling Thunder start to take place and you lose your life. TG holding on to every single moment that they can. And it's beautiful. Already a TP just moving forward down towards B. So space taken and the B site controlled. Lear now stuck in a bad position, but nobody knows. Already huge potential to take out more than one. They find Drone, but they can't seem to do anything about it. It's done. 2 players stuck on the extremities. And now even with the smoke dissipation, you still have to fight this 2v3. And absolutely no util to utilize. Wingman stuck out and Vix is alone.
Oh, as soon as that kill went through, Vix was like, and I'm out of here. You guys have fun by the spike. I'm gonna just clear myself away. And honestly, the right call. Excellent response coming in from the Glazers there in that middle battle arena that was kind of getting tossed down there. Immediately just trading back with the Rolling Thunder, nullify any ultimate, because things could have gone from bad to worse. Vix will be able to at least get one more kill here. His drone goes down, but now Riku potentially getting the swing. Oh, and yeah, Vix not able to get that kill. And just like that, the Glazers find themselves tying things up. And the Thinking Men are left kind of just scratching their heads, because these last couple of rounds, nothing that they've been really trying has worked out in their favor.
Yes, this should do.
They're changing the pacing a bit, which in itself isn't too surprising. Reformed has lost their spark on the Sage. TG know what to expect now, especially with the wall up coming down in mid, the A site hold. So now they've taken a quieter route, right? Taking that control, and I like it. I think it's become hard for Thinking Men to really play against something like that.
Yeah, and just taking a look too at how this defense is set up for the Thinking Men. Given the fact that they do have Reformed on that stage, and I feel like I'm going to keep on harping on this point, but come on, when you pull something out like that compared to what most teams run, you have to talk about how this impacts things. And what we're seeing right now from the Thinking Men is a very static line of defense. They're very fast at just abandoning the sites and then being like, okay, well, we can just kind of play for the retake. But what that ultimately ends up doing is it takes away a lot of information from what you can gather about what the Glazers are running or where they're pushing, where they're using utility necessarily. Because the Thinking Men are completely backing themselves up until they can get themselves into a nice big old group and then retake whatever happens. And we've seen them have a little bit more success when they do take that early round push. When they do move forwards, they set up a little bit more of a flank better and use the utility based around that. That seems to be one of the strengths of their retake. But because of the lack of information, they're scared to push out of their own neutral ground. And Zachary already showstopper online.
Oh, and they've got so much damage. Might work out regardless. 2 for 1. And a huge turnaround for TG. The A site completely theirs. And again, unfortunate line of position. You're playing against Vandals, and now you have the potential for Singers to really pull through here. But again, Paranoia can only do so much. And now Reformed not really having much to slowly pinch these players out of the way. Maybe try to gain some ground. Of course, Smoke doing enough as it is here for Scrubble Bub. Especially under the circumstances that there are, especially down in this 1v1. Flash just set out Scrubble Bub in a terrible, terrible position to fight this down.
Yeah, still has the Paranoia available, but at this point, just diving the spike wouldn't be the worst. You get your ultimate back online there. Is able to actually take out Precision. We're going down themselves as the Glazers, they take the lead now. 6-5. And this is going to be the last round where we get to see Thinking Men on this defense. It's been a little bit rough for them these last couple of rounds. Riku as well is going to have a Hunter's Fury on a line. But I like the Glazers injecting a little bit more pace into their attack. I think if they continue to be this aggressive and potentially just roll over the Thinking Men's early push, then it sets themselves up to be in an excellent position to just win the rest of the round. And you can already see the pings on the map already. The Glazers are probably going to go in fast.
And fast they will, honestly. A Pain Shell can't seem to hold them back. Hunter's Fury kind of hunting down whatever's happening in mid, but lack of information kind of leads them to continue that push up towards A. This is, I mean, if they tend to flank that, it might be a pretty huge idea. Seems like not. Feeling a bit more insecure about that.
Oh, Vix actually is able to duck that away, and yeah, Drone almost going down. A little bit of a misplay, but a lot of utility getting dumped in. The Glazers don't take any ground for it. And honestly, I think the Thinking Men are doing an excellent job at defending this site right now. The Glazers look like they're kind of trapped.
Yeah, everyone's just trying to survive at this point. It feels like the Hunger Games. This is just the bloodbath area. Once you enter, it's done.
Not quite as catchy as the Hunger Games, but, you know, let me know how the publication goes on the bloodbath area.
The bloodbath area is the new title for the Hunger Games.
Yeah, so the Glazers too, because the spike is already tucked away there. Thankfully, because of the Cypher utility, they know that they're not being flanked, so they're going to re-aggress here. Scrubble with the first one. Ooh, Lear finds that second.
Yeah, huge spot to be in. Already just off-centering themselves. Everybody on Thinking Men are playing strategically now, waiting for the push. And they've changed it in their minds. Before, it was the objective of eliminating these players. Now it seems like the objective is more so keeping the site intact. Before, they would have went full force out to the outskirts of A, maybe have tried to fight that to make sure they push back. But here, they just kept control, and that's all you really need.
Yeah, I mean, once again, look at that. Just the ultimate util dump up front just to make sure that the attack gets staggered for a little bit of a second. And honestly, too, a little bit of that is just because the Glazers dumped so much right off the bat, praying that they kind of run into paint. And to be fair, they did. But now it's all tied up 6-6. Thinking men, this is where things could start to turn around here. Still curious how this Sage is going to work, specifically on the attack. But on this first round especially, that Barrier Orb does an excellent job of just taking out one of the potential lanes onto the site post-plant. Of course, though, they might just go for an aggressive wall. I mean, we've seen so many of those right off the bat. So let's see how this one shakes out. The Recon Dart, oh, dodged, actually. Gives no information, and the Glazers think there's nobody there, so let's just abandon the site. Zachary is going to be the point person, though, and once that information is given over, I imagine we're going to see the rotation come way back around.
Okay, with one way being set. Now they know that somebody's holding the angle, and I am curious to see how they're going to handle this. It doesn't seem like Paranoia is already set up, and don't have too much to play with here. Silence out of the way, and just push back from TG. This is a common recurrence I've seen, is just not being able to hold it. Yeah, regardless, just a slow workup. I know Zachary's holding the angle. Does get pushed back. Paint shell still available. I think Paint might try to clear the angle, or maybe zone some of these players out of the way with this alone. Yep, already stepped back down towards the back of site with Paint slowly working themselves up. Oh my gosh, it's worrying. Pistol round going 50-50 for both sides, and Ange was fighting for their lives to keep them alive.
Excellent shock dart. Keep in mind, Recon Dart available as well. Could be huge from Riku, especially as the retakers come in.
Oh my gosh, the smoke just saved the life of Reform just a bit, honestly. Zachary definitely lacking some of that confidence as that set down. Now just a right click from Reform that's needed. Breaking the opposite wall, but too many players watching the spike at this point. And they need to push in. They have nothing to work with here. Maybe if Precision can hit the shots, and they do. TG winning out on that defense.
Man, I love these Sage walls. I mean, say what you will about them, but that was such a fun idea. As soon as they run it onto site, they clear the back thanks to the paint shells tossed in by Paint, and then just put up the wall, and you can see the Glazers were like, what do we do about this? Like, we have never seen this before. And so that it just got to this like weird, awkward situation where you could tell that the thinking men were like, okay, we have a little bit of time to breathe, so let's try and figure our stuff out. But ultimately, the Glazers, they just play together. They got the numbers advantage, and they win out that pistol round. Once again, taking the lead here. Well, the thinking men, this time, looks like they're going to hard rush onto B, but I'm so worried about a lot of this Cypher utility. That one way could be absolutely deadly for this attack.
Already won the last round, so they're feeling pretty good. Especially now with Cam just settled down in B. Once they pop that one out, might get taken down, but yeah, so many players just left over.
And on top of that, too, keep in mind, Ange is just watching A. In case anyone walks up there, a lot of information given, and they're already setting up their util combo, but with the smoke going through mid, that should give the Glazers a bit of information that that mid presence is completely sealed off. As soon as the Cypher trip gets destroyed, that's going to be the sign whether or not it's going to be that A side attack or if it's going to be a B. Actually, it's just right up mid.
Cage triggered.
They pulled off any signs of entry, but they still managed to take another one in. So TG kind of hold back for a while, but a beautiful execution already from Thinking Man. Well done! And the Classic still does the job. They've held on. And even then, 6 health, they're still fighting, regardless of that. Potential to pick that one up, honestly, quite slim. And now, especially with a spray down, it's a clean-up 3K from Zachary. Man, that was looking risky.
I feel like the word of this map is creative for Thinking. is such a novel idea. But what ended up happening was ultimately they ended up splitting themselves up in 3 different locations. One walking through B main, one walking through door, one walking through the defender's spawn. It got so uncomfortable, and they were hoping to just kind of do this pincer mechanic, but ultimately it gave up these 1v1 opportunities where the better weaponry from the Glazers is going to do more than enough to be able to take things over. But I think the last thing you want to pay attention on that round is how quick the Thinking Men are at taking space on this map. As they now have rifles, that's going to be a more important factor for these attacking rounds. But Glazers, speaking of map control, they're already rushed into the attacker spawn. The Thinking Men, they don't even know it yet, but they're going to be pincered into this A-side hit as the entire team of the Glazers are going to be waiting for them.
Oh yeah!
Composition is interesting too, because now, only source of information they have is going to be the Thrash that really sets through here. Although nothing. Can't find anything with it now. Zachary's still stuck in smoke, especially with everybody else slowly working themselves up. Now finally finding 2. It's Thinking Men bringing and reeling themselves back into the top. Though Drone, good understanding as to where this player might be, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, Stun kind of missing out on where the general location might be. Overall, TG stuck in a bonus round, so not the best kind of position to be in when it comes down to what weapons you want to use.
Flawless.
Yeah, flawless round.
Okay, another creative Sage Wall kind of coming in there. I mean, it's so interesting because when the Thinking Men decide to take A side, they go through elbow and more or less just stack themselves in elbow, relying on this angle that you can see Scrubble Bubble right now, just kind of taking, because they understand that the Sage Wall funnels the retakers into either one of 2 positions. And as long as that Sage Wall is still up before it gets shot down, then you know that they got to be coming in through one of 2 places. And so they set themselves up in that area. And at that point, the Glazers, they don't really have that much utility to more or less push them back. This time, though, once again, B-side hit. The smoke goes out early here as the Glazers recognize that. And so they respect it and immediately have to pull back because they don't know whether or not they're losing mid-presence.
I love this. They're just waiting. Oh, and they need to just kind of eliminate any of the util that might have been there, so they know they've cleared at least the first couple of inches there. Yeah, and Paint starts to move themselves up. 3 players down towards the backside, and even through the smoke they find it. That's such a huge pushback, especially for TG, man. And they just completely won. At this point, all they have to do is play incredibly smart from this point on. Even then with the flash, it's beautiful. Zachary not letting go. And a Paint shield down towards back to eliminate the majority. It does not end. 4K just settled down for Zachary. And they continue to fight it down. Reformed is so lit at this point. A fire has been formed, man. And TG, unbelievable performance coming through there.
You failed.
Yeah. Hey. Is it too late to rescind my prediction earlier before this map started? Oh, I do think that it is a little bit of TG just kind of stepping it up, but it really just feels like that missing of the Cypher is kind of really just not working out too well for them on this attacking half here. The Sage utility, unfortunately, on the attack is not getting as much value as you would want, whereas at least with the Cypher trips and, you know, you can throw up the cages and whatnot, it gives you a bit of a better chance to isolate yourselves and at least zone things out a little bit better. And like I said earlier, you know, novel ideas are great, but as soon as your opponent starts to read into them a little bit more, they start to fall apart. Zachary going to be taking little bit more of an aggressive angle here, and the Thinking Men, they've taken over mid completely. Once again, that Cypher utility is going to allow the Glazers to give up a little bit more room, because until something goes down, they know that the Thinking Men are nowhere nearby.
So many trips. Again, I mean, we've seen Precision down and B quite often. If anything, Thinking Men starting to feel the pressure. A map that was heavily rooted towards them now, kind of seeming like it's going more so in favor of the side of the Glazers. Oh, and Pain in such an unfortunate position. The only way, actually, no, JK, big hole in the wall. At this point, it's the game show.
This is interesting. It's going to be a battle just out front of B. Once again, the Thinking Men just 5 stacking just outside the site. Good paranoia.
Yeah, huge. They try to flash back to maybe get some sort of counter through, but it doesn't work out. Thinking Men, they just 1 by 1 eliminate everybody. And what is Jerome going to do? Maybe they get one, but at the end of the day, that's a round win coming through for Thinking Men.
I just took a look at the composition here, Gompers, and I realize now that, yeah, there's 3 flashes, including Lear, who can throw down the fault line, and on top of that too, like the paranoia flying through. At any point, if the Glazers try and just attack Thinking Men, with pure utility, the Thinking Men will win. I want to see the Thinking Men go for more attacks like that last round, where it's very quick, just get onto the site, get the spike down, and then let yourselves set up. When they're all grouped up and they know where the Glazers are coming from, that's when you see the util dump get the most value out of it. And already, now they're just watching for it. We're going to be seeing the Glazers this time, though, on a little bit of a save. Keep in mind, Zachary does have this Guardian, Riku with the Outlaw, but it's a bit of a stalemate. The Glazers this time were the one who got aggressive on mid. No way.
Yeah, try to pull through with some of the shots there, but everybody else just can't really find an appropriate moment. I mean, here doing for TG already taking out 2 so early on with the weapons that were given to them is already pretty huge, but now slow work up down towards B. And of course, Riku getting walled off. They thought somebody was up there, but it wasn't that.
This is actually good. Reformed picks up the ultimate orb. Now have the resurrection available online, so Scrubble Bubble can be back into the fight. Already though, Hunter's Fury coming out pretty early on. Scrubble Bubble won't even be able to play the game. And that's a lot of information that Drone has just captured. The Glazers have to know that this is where it's going.
30 seconds left.
Attempting for some sort of pushback. Jerome, he pushed out so much util, and that did kind of spare them some time to avoid this. Now all it really is up to is whether or not those right clicks are going to work, but it's Riku holding down the fort with the Outlaw. Now 12 seconds left, the plank coming down, and they might have just done it. No.
Spike planted.
Still having to fight this one. Oh man, in a split second that would have won them the game. Now, shock darts to do damage, shield just down. And every single moment that passes, they're slowly closer to winning things out. Beautiful play from Riku.
Riku with the Outlaw. That is unbelievable how often the Thinking Men were just getting caught off guard with that weapon available. Like I said, Gompers, that was not a good buy round for the Glazers. And yet, honestly, Riku just kind of clutched it up. The Hunter's Fury, a little bit early in my opinion, but is able to secure the kill onto Scrubble Bubble. And Zachary with that first pick is absolutely massive. And this is not looking good for the Thinking Men now. I mean, that was supposed to be a very clean round, yet just the Outlaw, the 2 shots just do so much damage, and it's just completely shaking them up. Their buy is getting a little bit shaky as well. We're not going to see a full buy coming through. Paint at least has the showstopper online. Might be a very aggressive play right off the bat. Going to be the case. Round taken, but nothing found for it.
Oh yeah! Monster on the loose!
Not at this point. Oh my goodness, Riku with a wide swing just coming through from smoke. And TG, they pretty much have this one in the bag. And I'm seeing a new TG than the one that I saw yesterday on a map like this one. It's so interesting to see this sort of change. They seem more put together now, trying to kind of just make sure they take the site back. But even then, so much util just being expended off precision alone. TG still managed to find one. It doesn't matter. You can run, but you can't hide is the motto. And now we're down to 11-8. I'm surprised.
What we're seeing right now is TG slowly dismantle the Thinking Men death ball. By the death ball, I mean just the puddles of flashes that could kind of be thrown at them at multiple points in time, whether or not it is the dizzy, the flashpoint, the paranoia, all of that type of stuff. Now it feels like the Glazers are using their utility to stall it out. So after those flashes happen, there's a bit of leeway where we're not seeing the Glazers be able to capitalize off of it. Whether or not it's the smoke, whether or not it's the paint shells, it's just giving a little bit more space, and then a lot of that utility just gets nothing. And so Thinking Men are having a hard time engaging off of that lack of utility that is getting purpose. And now, I mean, this is a very easy read for the Glazers. They should know all 5 are here. Precision in a great spot still.
Oh no. not anymore. At this point, Pain Show coming back at the perfect time, but they still managed to find something else with it.
A.
You kind of do see the paranoia taking place. They thought they might have done something with that, but the spike isn't even planted. They're waiting to see if anybody wants to try to get this push out now, especially with tons of information. They know where both of them are. And they're going to try to ridicule them from that spot. And it seems like maybe so Scrubblebum fighting for their lives to stay back. Now, especially with information already given away down in smoke. It's another one to take away. Stinger still in hand. And a TP that's not going to do much. 19 seconds left until we might just be able to see something else from it. But it's already a GG in the books there. Match point from TG.
Wow, I was not expecting this outcome here. And TG, I mean, once again, it was an excellent attempt coming in from Thinking Men there. If they had the weaponry, I think they actually would have been able to squeeze that one out. But the Glazers have just been very proactive, I think is going to be the best word here. They're not afraid to take these opportunities and just swing out and be in these uncomfortable spots where they're securing a couple of kills. That time it was Drone. Previously we've seen Precision. It's just one of these players is in a weird spot, does not get cleared, and then gets away with 2 or 3 kills.
This goes here.
And now the Glazers, they're on map point. Eventually just closing this one out. They were not favored to win this. This was Thinking Men's strongest map with a 93 win percentage. This time they're struggling to get it done.
Not much of a struggle when it comes down to Zachary, though. Oh, man. And even then, a huge kind of reposition coming through from Paint. Yeah, stuck down to that 1v1. They've lost their Omen. So executions on site going to be a little bit harder under the circumstance that can't really find that space.
Nice and slow right now. This is a completely different look from what we've seen from the Thinking Men. Once again, Glazers just doing an excellent job of respecting it as well. They know they've got utility to be able to back themselves out, whether or not it's the paranoia on A or the fault line on B. As soon as they get a little bit of info, they're going to be backing off of it. The Thinking Men potentially going up into their spawn, decide against it right there. Now we're going to be walking right towards that Cypher.
Precision still watching. They might have just been able to pull through huge from TG. And it's game over. Unless Vix can pull something through. There's the possibility of that being slim to none. At this point, 2 pieces of util left available. Okay, Rolling Thunder. Really just adding on to it. At this point, I would be very, very annoyed. And it seems like it doesn't even matter. The Glazers map that seem like they should not have been able to win. They will pull through victorious.
Win.
And do a hell of a job doing so. Huge W in the books for the Glazers here.
100% a huge W. The Thinking Men coming into this matchup were favored, especially on their pick of Sunset. Even when we saw the map pick, we both questioned, that's interesting, you didn't ban Sunset? Are you sure you really want to do that? But, I mean, the Glazers, they make it look really good. I do think that there is a little bit of onus here with the Thinking Men deciding to bring in that Sage as opposed to that Cypher and almost being in their own head, and you could tell that they were trying to go for these creative plays, but the Glazers just started to shut it down and had a good read on the situation. And ultimately, they walk out 13-8. I mean, that is a very definitive scoreline.
No, it truly is. And not to mention 13-8 after your win percentage of what, 20% on the map? And you're running through with against the team that has been so dominant on a map like Sunset. And again, I really do think it might have just been the composition not really working out halfway through, especially like that Sage Gecko is so strong, in my opinion, especially with the op. I think a lot of teams weren't able to play against that, but the Glazers, sometimes there's just one team that can, and I feel like this was one of the circumstances. So, of course, though, big congratulations to the Glazers for running through with that first map, but we have a lot more games to go through with, so we'll be right back with more Challengers.
They say in life, there are no guarantees. They say a lot of stuff like that. Slow it down. Play it safe. Hedge your bets. So what? You gonna listen to that? You gonna stop because they can't guarantee you'll pull this off? No guarantee you'll win? No guarantee everything's gonna be fine? In life, you make your own guarantees. Nobody else will light your way. Start your own fire and keep it burning. And we guarantee you'll have one hell of a lifetime.